Alhamdulillah, it's a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given me and you the ability and tawfiq to participate in this gathering, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this gathering a source of guidance for all of us, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this gathering one of the means of our entry into Jannah. In our last session, we were finishing up the concept or the rebuilding of the Kaaba, but there are some very profound symbolisms that we find here that we were not able to finish in our last session. So it's important for all of us to start from where we left off. And that is some of the symbolisms that we learn from the rebuilding of the Kaaba. Alhamdulillah, we know the story behind, or we know the logic behind rebuilding the Kaaba, what actually happened and how it was rebuilt. But some of the lessons that we need to derive, and it is something that is important. Everyone knows the story, or most of the people know this story, that Kaaba was rebuilt when Prophet ﷺ was 35 years old. But I believe my responsibility as an Imam is to let all of you the wisdoms and the symbolisms that we can derive from this very important incident of the rebuilding of the Kaaba. So the first metaphor that is being given here, that is very, very clear, is that Kaaba has been destroyed 5 years before the coming of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it is being rebuilt right at his time. There is a clear symbolism here that the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam was destroyed before the coming of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and now Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to come as a prophet, and he is going to rebuild the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Because we should always remember, Kaaba in and of itself represents the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, and Kaaba also represents the first place ever built for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't know if you remember or not, long time ago when we were doing the tafsir of Surah Al-Baqarah, we mentioned this point there, that before the coming of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, there was no such thing as masjid. There was no such thing as a church. There was no such thing as a synagogue. There was no sacred place before the coming of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Inna awwala baytin wudi'a lin-nas. The first house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first house for the worshipping, that was set aside for the worshipping of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, was built in Makkah. So that was the first house. So this house, Kaaba, it represents the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, and it also represents the first place ever built for the worshipping of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the fact that this Kaaba was destroyed just 5 years before the coming of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is a clear symbolism here that the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam was not preserved by humanity. No one has fulfilled the right of the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. And the fact that it is going to be rebuilt right at the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's a clear indication, just like the Kaaba is being rebuilt, similarly the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam is going to be rebuilt. And the fact that the Kaaba was built upon the foundations of Ibrahim, it was built upon the foundation. They didn't build a new Kaaba. They built Kaaba upon the foundations of Ibrahim. Now again, there is a clear indication that when Prophet ﷺ will come, the foundations will remain same. The foundation of the religion of Ibrahim ﷺ, they will remain same. Yes, the building is renewed, but the foundation, the theology, La ilaha illallah, it will remain same. Yes, the dressing, the bricks, the building in and of itself, yes, it was renewed, but the foundation of the Prophet Muhammad, of the religion of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ will be same like the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. So that's the first symbolism that we learn here. The second symbolism, which is a very interesting symbolism, the fact that Prophet ﷺ being an arbitrator, the fact that Prophet ﷺ being the one who was chosen, being the one when he came, everyone was happy and everyone was rejoicing, being the one who saved people from bloodshed, from civil war. You know, this is a clear symbolism here that Prophet, just like Prophet ﷺ, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ saved his people from bloodshed, saved his people from civil war, and he exalted the honor of Quraysh. Similarly, when he is going to come as a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is going to exalt their honor again. He will exalt their honor, and he will exalt their honor in the entire mankind. And this actually happened when Prophet ﷺ came. And again, the symbolism here, the fact that Prophet ﷺ united all of the tribes of Makkah, all of the Arab tribes, by making them holding up that cloth together simultaneously, which had Hajar Aswad. which had that precious and special stone. The fact that he united all the tribes to hold that cloth together, there is again a clear symbolism. And when Prophet ﷺ, inshallah, he will come, he will unite all the tribes under the banner of Islam. Before the coming of Rasulullah ﷺ, all these Arab, they were disparate tribes. They were divided, they had differences of opinion. They were at each other's throat. There was a most hostile environment within Makkah. Prophet ﷺ came, united all of them as one ummah under the banner of Islam. And especially I want to mention here, this is the legacy of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. We should always remember. What actually hurts me a lot, that sometimes even in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we make divisions in the name of fiqh, in the name of nationality, in the name of family, in the name of tribe, in the name of nationalism. The biggest miracle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was that he brought the whole ummah together. And today we are dividing the ummah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us, I don't want to spend more time here, but may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us understanding. This is the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we need to live up to. Again, another symbolism, and this is not even a symbolism, this is a reality. That when Prophet ﷺ entered Kaaba as the first person, every tribe started saying, لَقَدْ جَاءَ الْأَمِينَ لَقَدْ جَاءَ الْأَمِينَ. Amin has come, Amin has come. And they were happy and they were rejoicing. And it's an amazing thing. Because before Prophet ﷺ came, their understanding was what? It's going to be like a lottery. It's going to be like a luck of the draw. Whoever is the first person who enters that place, obviously whatever tribe he belongs to, he's going to choose that tribe. And then that tribe is going to put the black stone in. That was their mentality. That's why they said whoever is the first person, he's going to decide, right? When there was a confusion, when there was a dispute, that's why they decided that whoever is the first person, he's going to decide. It was more like a lottery thing. But when Prophet ﷺ, subhanAllah, when he entered, everyone was happy. Everyone was rejoicing. And now this is not even a symbolism, this is quite blatant here. This is a reality. The kind of character he had, the kind of nobility that was recognized by everyone. That it didn't matter which tribe he belonged to. It didn't matter if he belonged to Banu Hashim. When he came in, everyone was happy because everyone loved him as one of their own. And this is the kind of character that we need to have, that everyone should love us. It doesn't matter which tribe we belong to, which family we belong to. When we enter into the house of Allah, when we walk into the house of Allah, our akhlaq should be such, our character should be such, our nobility should be such that we are welcomed by everyone. This is the character of Rasul. And one another story, inshallah, that we will discuss and we will mention, inshallah, in our next session, it also illustrates this status of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Finally, I know I only have 5 minutes, so finally 2 facts that I want to mention, I want to share with you, and then we are done, inshallah. You know Abu Jahl, everyone knows about Abu Jahl? Haris, do you know about Abu Jahl? He's one of the worst enemies of Rasulullah sallallahu. Okay? So Abu Jahl, a narration comes that when he stood up to collect funds for the rebuilding of Kaaba, he stood up and he said to the people, "O people, we are going to build the house of Allah, we need your money. But make sure that money that you give should come from your pure earnings. Make sure that the money that you are going to give, it does not involve any kind of cheating. There should be no interest involved, there should be no evil source involved, like gambling and prostitution." These were his words. Interest, gambling and prostitution. Your money should not come from these evil sources because we are going to build the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. SubhanAllah, I was studying this, in Seerah ibn Ishaq today I was studying this, and I was saying to myself that as filthy as Abu Jahl was, he had this understanding that we are going to do something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so it should be done by our pure money, by a money that is untainted, because we are going to build the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't need filth money. We don't need filth money. Inna Allah tayyibun, Allah is tayyib, Allah is pure, and Allah only accepts what is pure. He had this understanding, even though there was no Sharia there, and subhanAllah, he knows what is a filth money. He knows, so he mentions prostitution, he mentions interest, he mentions gambling, he mentions cheating. And he's not even a Muslim. Sharia is not even telling him this. Islam is not even telling him this. But because of the fitrah, the nature that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala given him, we already know. You don't need to go to an Imam Sahib to know this. You already know in and of itself, you already know inside your heart that what is halal and what is haram. And subhanAllah, today we have become so blinded by our materialistic mentality that we chose to neglect it. We choose to ignore it. A lot of time people comes, I know I'm taking a bit of your time, but a lot of people are here, so I have to mention this. A lot of time people comes and ask me this question about mortgage. Now I'm new in this country, and probably I have no experience as far as mortgage is concerned, interest is concerned, bank is concerned, finances is concerned. But I know some of the basic rules and regulations of Islam, some of the principles of Islam. Islam tells you that the only reason why you can go for anything that is even doubtful, I'm not even saying haram here, that is even doubtful, slightly doubtful, you can only go for that option when you are in a need of necessity. So you have a verse in Surah Al-Baqarah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the list of haram food. إِنَّمَا حَرَّمَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةَ وَالدَّمَ وَلَحْمَ الْخِنْزِيرِ وَمَا أُهِلَّ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ بِهِ. Allah mentioned this list of haram food. But then Allah said, فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. Whoever becomes majboor, whoever is in need, he doesn't have any other option, his life is at stake, then he can eat. But how much will he eat from this haram food? He doesn't have any other option. So how much will he eat from his haram food? غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ. Two conditions here. Number one, he is in need, he needs it. He cannot survive without eating. So he needs it. And number two, he's not going to exaggerate. He's not going to cross his limits. He's only going to eat that can make him survive. He's not going to eat to his fill. So when people come for the mortgage, I give them this principle. So if you know that you are in a need and you cannot survive whatsoever on rent, and you don't have that kind of income, and you don't have that kind of means to survive in a house with your family, and you want to go for a mortgage, then go for it. It's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then at the same time, I always argue with the people, and I never ever appreciate people who buy houses on mortgage just for commercial reasons. So they buy houses after houses after houses after houses just for commercial reasons, just for business reasons. In any way, shape or form, this is not acceptable. You can go and ask any alim or any scholar. And look at Abu Jahl. He mentioned interest. He mentioned it. He mentioned interest, gambling, cheating, prostitution. He mentioned these four. If a person like Abu Jahl can make this kind of distinction, then why can't we make this distinction when we have this religion of Islam? So this is the first fact. The second fact that I want to share with you, just give me a couple of minutes. It was first time in the history of the building of the Kaaba that Kaaba was built shorter than its foundations. Do you remember the story that we discussed? It was built shorter than the original foundation of Ibrahim. Remember, the original was rectangle, but then they had limited material, so they made it a square. And then Abdullah bin Zubair radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he came for 5-6 years, when he was in Makkah and he had his own khilafah in Makkah, then he rebuilt it again to its original size. But then Umayyads came and then he rebuilt it, then they put it again back to the size of the Jahiliyyah Arabs. And then Abbasis came along again and they said we should expand it again. We should expand it again. And then what did Imam Malik said? That no, I don't want the Kaaba to become a toy or a playful thing that whenever a ruler comes he's going to destroy it and rebuild it. So leave it like this. Leave it like this. The point that I'm trying to make here is that there was a wisdom. A brother asked me this question. Sorry, he was not here, but he asked a very, and I'm sharing this point because of his question. He asked this question that if Prophet ﷺ wanted to extend the Kaaba and make it like it was originally, then why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will it to happen? Why? Why the Kaaba is shorter than its foundations? You have the Hatim there, that's are the original foundations. But why Kaaba is shorter now? Why did Allah subhanahu? Because Prophet wanted to make it like its original size. There is a wisdom here. You know, praying in the Kaaba is an honor, is a greatest blessing. Prophet ﷺ, he prayed inside the real structure of the Kaaba. It's a huge honor, it's a huge blessing. Now the 40% of the Kaaba, that was Kaaba in the time of Ibrahim ﷺ, it's an open area now. There is no Kaaba there, there is no building, there is no structure here, it's an open area. Only in the time of Abdullah bin Zubair. Now, had it been rebuilt upon the original foundations of Ibrahim ﷺ, it was really impossible for people like you and me to read namaz or to read salah inside the Kaaba. Because remember, from the times of Jahiliyyah Arab, the door is higher. It has been higher. This is what they did. They made it higher. Abdullah bin Zubair radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he came, he rebuilt it, he made the door down on the ground, and then everyone would come and pray. But when he was killed by Hajjaj bin Yusuf, and then that chapter was ended and then it was rebuilt, then again the door was, from that time until now, the door is higher, right? And this is the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Either you are a higher official, either you are a Nawaz Sharif, or you are a famous politician or a government official. Otherwise, you can't. The only time they open the house or they open up the doors of the Kaaba is that once a year when they wash the Kaaba. And 10-15 people who are there, who happen to be there at that time, they only allow them to go inside the Kaaba and pray. It's humanly for us, for people like us, it's impossible. But however, it's not impossible. Because 40% of the Kaaba, that was the original Kaaba, it's an open area now. So the blessing of praying inside the Kaaba, it's open to all of us now. All of us. We don't need to walk into the doors. You go into that area, you will be in the Kaaba. This is the original Kaaba. So that was the wisdom here. Allah chose this intentionally. And subhanAllah, whenever Allah decides something, I gave you the story of the grandest material that was coming from where? From the Caesar of palaces. And it was supposed to end somewhere else. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a different plan. And that all that material ended up in financing and rebuilding the Kaaba. But the Caesar never intended that. This was not the intention of Caesar. He was sending that material to Yemen for the building of church, for the rebuilding of church. But it ended up where? In Makkah, in Kaaba. It rebuilt the Kaaba. That was the intention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everything worked out for better. So this was the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And every time Allah decides some things, whether we understand or not, it always works out for better. So we need to have a trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, next time, one more story, which is a story of, very interesting story. That's the story that we will do before we start the revelation and the beginning of the revelation, inshallah. Hopefully, if you can keep coming, participating, inshallah, it will be very beneficial for all of us.